What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Beneath the Beat podcast. Today, our guest is Ben Schuller. He is originally from Saginaw, Michigan, but now currently resides in Nashville, Tennessee, and he's been making quite a name for himself down there. He just released a new single, Chapter 6, Not Enough, which is located on all streaming platforms, so go check it out. Without further ado, Mr. Ben Schuller. Ben and I go way back, all the way to the CMU days. We were playing together. Very, very good time. I just it was so interesting because I went to CMU and I didn't really know anybody. And I started meeting some people in the School of Music. And I think I got introduced to you through like Kevin Keith.
Yeah, I think it was through percussion studio people.
Yeah. And then you're like, hey, man, what's that?
I was just going to say, I think it was at one of their parties at like Adam and George's place.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, hey, I'm looking for a drummer. He's like, yo, I'm a drummer. And we both like hammered at this random party. And just
I was like, dude, I like this guy. And so then we started playing together. It was just a lot of fun. And it was just like meeting Adam and everybody. It was just a blast, and just like playing some shows. And it was like really cool because I went from like not knowing anybody to like immediately knowing a bunch of people and like playing some music. So it was like really, it was my first year of college. So it was a really nice, like, okay, I'm in college and I feel like I have friends now, I went up to see me all by myself and I had, I didn't really know anybody.
I didn't know this cute side of it. Like,
yeah.
I'm glad that we were an important part to your early CMU experience.
Yeah, man. And it was just a blast playing with you guys. And that's something I noticed from you super quickly, is just your work ethic. And we're gonna get into like the whole realm of Mr. Ben Schuller. But the first thing that I noticed about you is how serious you took your music, how serious you took the stage presence, how serious you took rehearsals, and like your overall work ethic was it was top notch. And I think that's, from an early age, that was inspiring to me. And I think that's what really helped you get to where you're at. And I want to like talk about that more in depth, because I feel like a lot of musicians might be feeling like they're hitting a wall, or they're not getting something's not happening. And I think it's important for people to know that work ethic is everything when it comes to being a musician. It's what helps you stand out, because in today's day and age too, there's so many people on YouTube, so many people on Spotify, there's so many people doing all of these things. What are you doing to push yourself above that, to get to that next level, to get that recognition that you deserve? And I feel like you're a huge example of that. So
yeah, I appreciate that a lot. That's a lot of kind words coming.
Yeah, man. So let's talk about so you just released a new EP.
Yeah, well, I'm in the process of it, actually. It's kind of like a evolving album as it's going on.
Cool.
Yeah. I'm putting out a new song and video every summer, or every month. It started like in June. And so I'm like going on chapter 5 right now. Each month has a new chapter, and they're all kind of like interlinked together. So it's been this cool experience to see kind of how it's evolving as it goes. But
I love it, man. And I love the music. And for everybody, Ben Schuller, it's chapter 4, Somebody Else. And it's on Spotify. Be Somebody Else. I'm sorry. And it's on Spotify. A lot of the singles are on YouTube. So check it out. I think overall, Zach and I were talking about this. We really appreciate the ethereal vibe to it, and both the underlying hip hop grooves, which is so cool. And I like, I'll just sit there and listen to it when I'm like doing work. You know what I mean?
I appreciate that. It means a lot.
On a loop.
Yeah.
And that was another thing is Cruising Altitude, when that came out.
Yeah.
I listened to the whole thing. I was like, that is sweet. I got to do something with that one.
Yeah, you killed that drum cover of it. That was sick.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I was
so you're releasing a new tune every month.
Yeah.
Kind of what inspired you to, I guess, what inspired you to release a new strain of music / what inspires you to do it in that fashion?
Yeah. So this whole album that I'm doing right now is kind of this commentary on our generation, I guess, and our like obsession with the internet and social media and how it's kind of changed the way we interact with each other and the way we view ourselves. And that kind of just came from I've built my whole life based around my whole career is based on the internet. And, it was a new thing when we were coming up trying to figure out what to do in music. It was like, oh, YouTube and, Spotify and social media. And I'm getting new followers and fans, but they're all through the internet. And you don't realize, at the time, but it's a totally different like way to shape how we grow up than, our parents did, especially like, so people who are coming up in the music industry in the 90s had a completely different way. And so I guess like last winter I started like getting this idea together because I realized that even the success that I had reached, like I still wasn't happy. And I was like trying to figure out like why I had all these things that I said I wanted 2 years before, like now I should be like super great with everything. So I just kind of got this idea to get the ball rolling on this project. And it just kind of like, once I got one song, the first one I wrote was actually Be Somebody Else, the one that just came out. And like, after that, they all just kind of started coming out. There was like all these different angles of how social media and the internet have just influenced, mostly for the worse, our mental health and, my own struggles with trying to be a musician in this internet age. And putting it out one song at a time was kind of just like how our brains, how our audience processes new content these days. Everything is so like, we want it right now. We want it like, but we also, our attention span is 0. So, if I would have, said nothing, released an album, it could have been like, someone listens to 1 or 2 songs, like, oh, that's cool, he released an album. But I feel like releasing it one at a time with, a full production music video to kind of get the point across behind each one kind of, is parallel to how our minds think these days, being so programmed by the internet to, consume content the way that we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you see a lot of artists that are doing that right now, and I think a lot of people have their own take on why they do it. But I definitely think that is the underlying foundation behind all of it. That is the way that we consume content now. Everybody has 0 patience. they just right. One song at a time. And I think that's awesome. And I think that's the way, that's a push forward in the direction of releasing music.
Yeah. I mean, for better or worse, it's just the way that our audiences work now.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, if I had to say my opinion on like releasing it one song at a time, I think that can work in our benefit a lot, because a lot of times I feel like in the album format, really, really good songs can get like lost in the mix because people don't have the attention span. So when you as an artist can take a step back and say, one at a time, here we go, and kind of rein yourself in, then it creates that scarcity and that longing for the next tune.
That's very true.
Yeah, it starts to build a little anticipation. Also with these, it felt like each song, I wanted to say something specific with each one. I had this visual behind each one, so I knew that the best way to get that in front of the people would be to give them space and give them time. So like they have a whole month with this one and some time to get excited for the next one, as opposed to just throwing everything out at once.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the first album that I consumed in that like format was Snarky Puppy, We Like It Here, when they were releasing the album like 1 tune a week. And it was such a cool thing for me, because it was like, I think it was like Thursday nights or something. It became like a Thursday night ritual for my friends. We would all get together and sit there and be like, all right, new Snarky Puppy tune just dropped, let's go.
Right. It's like a TV show almost. It's like
yeah.
Oh,
wow, I never made that correlation before.
Yeah. Well, it is crazy because like I think that's the way that the music industry is headed, but then TV has taken like the opposite route where it's like they just release everything. And I mean, I don't know, do you guys watch the show The Boys?
No.
Oh
I've heard
man.
it.
Oh man. It's so good. So it's essentially if you were to take superheroes and put them into real life society.
Oh,
That's
I've
what The
been
Boys
keen to
is.
watch that.
Yeah, it's so good. And so they season 2 just wrapped up, and they released like on the release day, they released like the first 3 episodes. And then after that, for the rest of the season, they released one every Friday. And fans all over the internet were blowing up over this. They're like writing The Boys terrible reviews saying
no.
yeah, they're like, this release schedule is awful. like there's so many comments just saying the release schedule is awful.
I just want to binge the whole thing.
Yeah. I
Wow.
wonder what societally makes those things so different, where it's like TV, we want to just sit down and binge all of it, but music, we're okay and we like it better if it's released one at a time. I wonder what that shift is.
Yeah.
I wonder, like, so I almost think that the audience might prefer if they had it all at once, like an album from a musician, but it's in the musician's best interest, just like I think it was in the show The Boys' best interest to release it one by one, because it does keep that anticipation. So yeah, I think the audience for TV just got used to the way that, you know, they could binge watch everything right away, and they got a little, I don't know. So when they see someone doing the opposite way, they're like, oh, what are you doing? Like, we thought everyone was going to do like this.
Yeah.
But for music, we're kind of just being like, suck it up. This is how we're going to release it. We know it's best for us. Like, you know, if you're going to listen to the music, you're going to listen to the way that I want you to listen to it.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. That's a really good point. And I think also along those lines, it makes every tune just a little bit more special too.
I think so.
As a composer.
Yeah.
You know, as an artist, it just makes every tune special, a little bit more special, because you have a release for every single tune, and you're doing it in an order, in a chronological order that makes sense to you. And I don't know, it just, for me, it just means a lot more each individual part of the album.
Oh, 100%.
That's what I liked. I don't know if you guys heard of like Tom Misch, but when he released what's the name of that album? He released an album, and he did kind of the same thing Snarky Puppy did, where he released most of it and he would release it once a week. But then there were some songs that he didn't release. And then it built all the way up to the album. So it made those songs kind of stick out too, which I found very interesting. It's like, oh, I haven't heard this song. I've heard these 5 or 6 songs, but then there's these 3 that I haven't heard. Oh, that's cool. So I just like I still listen through the album that way.
It's all experimental. Like, there's no right or wrong answer. Everyone's still kind of trying to figure out how we're supposed to interact with content in this era. Like, everything's changing all the time.
Yeah.
So speaking of content, you, my friend, are, I feel, kind of a master of that domain.
I've done a lot of content.
You have done a lot of content.
Yes.
I just want to share this picture with everybody really quick.
Oh, what is this?
Oops.
Way to go.
I should
Andy.
probably not stop my video to do that.
I don't even know how to share a picture on Zoom. I'm kind of Zoom illiterate.
It's okay. So is Andy.
Yeah, I'm still working it out. So we have this picture right here.
Oh man, you did some homework.
Yeah. So this picture, first of all, could you kind of explain what this is?
Well,
we know, but and for everybody that's listening, this is Ben Schuller holding the gold play button from YouTube.
Yeah, it's a big milestone on YouTube when you hit your 1 millionth subscriber. They send one of those guys, and they look nice and fancy. I still haven't hung mine up. It's still sitting in there, but I'm gonna figure it out at some point. It's
just collecting dust. I don't know.
Still in its case, but the picture is up though, so that's really. I mean, If that doesn't say anything about our society, I don't know what does. Super pumped to get the plaque, but just because I wanted to take the picture with it, and then it's just sitting in my closet.
Dude, do you guys know Davey 504 from YouTube, the bass player? He's like slappers. he's fucking hilarious, but he got the gold play button and he made a bass guitar out of it.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's super cool.
He made a YouTube video of turning his play button into a bass guitar. It was really cool.
I've seen a lot of creative videos from like those niche channels that are like, the channel that they just drill into everything and see like what's inside of this. And so obviously when they got their play button, they had to cut it open and see what was inside a play button. Like, so I like those creative channels when they do stuff like that. I'm not sure what I would do.
You just let it collect dust. It's all good.
I make a YouTube video that's like my play button in my class.
Just like a time lapse of like over the years, just collecting dust.
Yeah.
That would actually be really good.
Yeah.
Make like a 2-minute video of this play button collecting dust.
True artist right there.
Yeah.
True
So
artiste.
let's talk about YouTube for a second. How did you go about building such a massive following on YouTube?
Yeah, so YouTube, I mean, Andy remembers back in the day when we did you were I don't know if you were ever really like in those videos, but we were making them at the time. Like when we did college style and stuff, I feel like you made a little cameo.
Did I?
Yeah, I took some clips of our one of our shows, and I think
Nice.
I had to make sure you got a second. But
I was probably playing it like quadruple forte, playing louder than
no,
you
you were
up here.
I'm gonna find that clip and show it to you. You were doing like going, but it lined up with the beat really well. Like I don't know, it was perfect.
Yeah.
Anyway, I guess I started doing it in college, where I just was like, not being anywhere near the music industry, to me, it was like, oh, how could I, find an audience? So I can make covers. Everyone makes covers. So I started making covers, and I made a lot of them and started, building up an audience doing that. And I would do really simple ones where I would just like, I have my computer set up where you could see like my keyboard and my microphone. And I would do like 30 of them just like that, where I'd record it and like not even move the camera. So it was like quantity over quality basically. And like I would still take my time and make sure they sounded good, but I wasn't trying to do anything creative with the video. I wasn't trying to make cool arrangements. I was just like, I'm gonna play this song on piano and sing it. And because I didn't know what I was doing, I just knew that I needed to get stuff out there, and slowly started to build some momentum. I started doing some more complicated videos, some like more creative stuff. I did this thing for a while where I had a twin, where like I would just set the tripod and have me on one side and then have me on the side and just blend it together or whatever. And it was like a running joke in my channel that like Ben has a twin, and like sometimes he shows up and sings duets with him. I did some videos with that guy. And so I built up this following doing covers. Started getting some success on like once streaming was huge, once Spotify became a real big thing. Like there's a huge audience for acoustic covers on Spotify. And so I started making money, which I hadn't been doing before. So that was like the coolest thing when I was able to quit my serving job. Shout out Red Lobster. I'm slinging Cheddar Bay biscuits, man. Those are
Shout out to Red Lobster.
Shout out to the Red Lob. But
Red Lob.
yeah, we were the Lob Stars.
Dude, that just reminds me of Space Jam.
Yeah.
Stars.
Yeah. So a lot. That's what they're gonna be in the new one. There's a new one coming out with LeBron. I'm super.
Yeah, man, I can't wait for that.
They're gonna be lobster aliens.
I'm gonna get drunk and go watch it.
That sounds like the best option. Yeah, but anyway, yeah. So I was doing a lot of covers. I found these other two dudes on the internet, and we started the Nerd Out group, which totally different thing that I never knew existed. It's music. We make music that's based on nerd culture, so like, themed around like comic books, superhero, like Marvel movies, Star Wars, video games, like TV shows, and built up just like a really passionate following for that. And that became like a very structural. Like we put out a new song every week. There's me and there's a rapper, and so we kind of switch back and forth. Like he'll do a song, then I'll do a song. So we're not like killing ourselves trying to put out new stuff, but it is very like structured and scheduled. But that just like grew over time, and that's like I think I'm getting close to hitting 3 million subscribers. That's what the plaque is for. But yeah, so that's just continued to snowball. So that's been great, and led me to be able to do a lot of new things, but like collaborating with a lot of different YouTubers, like names that I never like would have been able to do otherwise. And so I don't say like I've ever really set out to be a YouTuber. It just kind of like because I was trying to find an avenue to grow myself as an artist and a musician, like YouTube became this platform that I was able to kind of take advantage of and really, grow with.
That's awesome.
That's really cool. And it's crazy because earlier we were talking about like the negatives of social media, but then there's huge positives that come with it too,
Right? No, it's such a double-edged sword. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like this whole album kind of touches on how like I know how negative it is. Well, why don't you just quit it? It's like I can't, because it's like I need it at the same time. Like I'm very aware of how harmful it is, but I also know that like without it, I lose everything that I've built. So it's like this terrible, like damned if you do, damned if you don't type of situation.
Yeah. But in that too, now you're using your creative side to kind of speak to that with this new album. And I feel like in a way that could be, therapeutic.
It absolutely is. 100%.
Like, here is what I'm doing. Here is my music that speaks to the negative side of this. But in that, you're going back to when you were a kid and playing piano for the first time. And like, this is why I fell in love with music in the first place. Because I can emote what I'm feeling right now through this in ways that speaking in words just can't,
Right. And especially with these, like, I can write a million breakup songs or like random love songs that are just, generic, whatever. But this, I felt like you're saying, I'm actually like emoting. I'm getting out like these true feelings that I had and like real experiences. And so, yeah, definitely been therapeutic. And one of the great things about music is that when you have difficult times, you have a way to express yourself through it. And I'm definitely grateful for that.
Yeah. And dude, I mean, I've always been a fan of yours, dude. You're a super talented dude, super talented musician, producer, composer. But just there's something about these tunes that really was different and really spoke to me. And I honestly didn't know that was the meaning, that was like the inspiration behind it, but there was just something about it. It was just like, man, this is so cool and different. And I just, so it's amazing. And that's where our personal experiences putting into our creativity, people can take different things from that. They can put their own experiences into that too, which I think is so awesome.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man.
I like the new stuff.
Yeah, absolutely, dude.
Yeah, well, that like talking about like how everyone can take something different from music. It's like I feel like that's one of the things that drew me to specifically instrumental music. You know what I mean? Because there's no words for anyone to, pull at. It's all just the emotion that you take from the music, And I watched this video earlier. It was Jacob Collier. We all know Jacob Collier, right? Ben, do you know Jacob Collier?
I don't
know. He's disgusting. I just looked up the other day. He's 2 days older than me, and I was like, what the fuck?
You're like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah, like he's 2 days older than me and has like, I don't know, 6 Grammys or something like that. It's like, what the hell, dude? But he was playing Danny Boy through I think it was like 18 different emotions that were thrown at him randomly via iPad.
Oh man.
And it's wild for him to talk about. And then like after he plays it, he goes back and analyzes it and said, so here's what I was thinking. This emotion came up and I knew that these kind of feels, you'll notice I was playing a little louder there and I was playing in a really low register for the angry emotion. It's like things like that. It's so crazy. And there's some things that are universal, but some things that can be taken in totally different ways. And I think metal is a really great example of that. Like metalheads are
Oh, yeah.
oftentimes some of the nicest people I've ever met. But sometimes I listen to metal and I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, what is that? So yeah, no, it's a crazy thing about music. I think we've got a beautiful art form that we all participate in, you know?
100%.
So Ben, you and I was not shocked by any means, but you kind of just took everything and moved to Nashville. What was that experience for you like? And what is the Nashville experience in general?
Sure. I mean, the moving experience was, great. I'm so glad I did it because it was, as much as I missed, and I, had that fear of leaving because missing all my friends, not, missing the support system that I had. Obviously you're scared of that, but just getting out, like there's so much more for the music industry here. It's like everybody in Nashville is involved in the music industry in some way.
Wow.
And so it's just going anywhere. Like there's a million shows going on every night, except for right now because of COVID, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
You can literally just, walk into any venue and you're going to find 20 other people that are just like you who, moved from their hometown to Nashville to pursue it. And so you're only rubbing shoulders with the most like dedicated people, the people that like really believe in themselves and who want to be there. And so you're just surrounded by so much talent, and it just kind of, it inspires you. You're definitely like motivated by the other people around you. You're always seeing, other people up the bar and like, wow, I just saw a show from my friend who just did this, and like, it gave me so many good ideas on something I could do with myself, because everybody here is just taking it to another level all the time.
Man, that's so cool.
Yeah. So I know there's, what is it? Broadway is the street that has all those bars and everything.
Yeah, man.
I've actually spent a little bit of time in Nashville in January and also in November. That's
Okay.
pretty much, I mean, it seemed like it was tourist central. So I was like, okay, there's lots of bars, there's live music, let's go.
Right.
So, but is that street with all those bars, is that hard to break into as far as like playing live, or?
That's a different world than what I was kind of just describing, I guess, because that is definitely like the tourist spot. That's more so like I have a lot of friends who play on Broadway too, but that's more of like the you're playing 4-hour cover sets.
Yeah.
That, like, and a lot of those like artists are pursuing their artist thing outside of that too.
Okay.
And but that they're paying the bills by playing at Honky Tonk Central from 10 to 2 every night kind of thing.
Okay. That's like their day job.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I would say, yeah. So like Nashville definitely has different scenes, and like it does make sense why, if you're visiting, you see like, oh, this is the music scene in Nashville, but I don't even consider that the music scene here. That's like the tourist scene where, obviously a lot of the really talented musicians play. But when those artists go and play their original shows, they're not playing them at Tootsie's, they're playing them at, the High Watt or Mercy Lounge or, one of the other venues in town that focuses on the original music. And there's, a big audience of obviously people in town that are really into that too, like less of the tourists and more of the locals. So I guess to answer your other question, is it hard to break into that? I would assume so. I don't know a whole lot about it because it's never been something that I've been pursuing. First of all, because I'm not a country guy. So I don't need to do that in the first place. I'd have to learn 400 country songs that I don't know.
Yeah.
Or want to know.
Yeah, sure.
Hey, some country's good, man. You can't.
Oh no, I mean, you definitely you get an appreciation for when you're down here for sure. Like as someone who doesn't listen to it, you can definitely, hear the good songs. Like a good song is going to be a good song in any genre. It does definitely matter there. But yeah, so I mean, if you're down here as a tourist, like to me, I love taking people to Broadway. Like when I have friends visit and stuff, and it's grown a lot even since I've been here. It's a lot less just for tourists now. There's a lot of like cool spots on there that are for like local young adults. But the actual like the music industry side, like the music scene, I guess you would say, is more in the smaller venues and the side parts of town, the little pockets like East Nashville, Midtown, like little areas like that where not less foot traffic, I guess, but that's where you're going to find the the talented original artists and, you know, all kinds of different genres that have come from all over the country to grow here.
That's cool. That's good to know, because my dad lives in Florida, and so I usually drive when I go to see him. And Nashville is like a really good halfway point. So
Right.
that's why I was there both times. It was the second time it was kind of planned, and the first time my buddy and I were like, we're just gonna drive straight through. And we got to Nashville around dinner time, and we were like, oh, let's stop here for food. And then we're like, hey, this looks pretty cool. Why don't we just stay the night?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool though. That's cool. So you said it was like East Nashville, right?
Yeah, like East Nashville. I mean, I don't know. Like Nashville's, there's a lot more than just Broadway, I guess. Like it's not even necessarily like that. You can't be downtown. There's little venues and stuff around there too. It's just like Broadway in general is more for, it's the show. It's like the Nashville experience where you're gonna come and you're gonna hear your favorite country hits from, you know, all your favorite artists. And I mean, it's a great time. I have a blast down on Broadway still. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say that's the music scene in Nashville.
Yeah. Well, and I like the idea of being in a place where everybody around you is doing like the same, like not the same thing, but like in the music industry. Right. So there is something to attest to when you're around people that are all in the music industry. There is an extra inspiration and push from everybody. It's like when you're a part of like the way I guess I can equate it is like if you're, you know, you join the Chicago Bulls back in the 90s. Yeah. It's like everybody has like this drive and this push to like win a championship or like go the extra mile. So like how do you feel like just being in that culture? How has that shaped maybe your sound? Do you feel like that's shaped your sound a little bit?
I'm not necessarily, I don't know if it necessarily shaped my sound, just because like we are such an internet based, you know, music industry at this point. I feel like I'm more influenced by stuff that I've heard that's coming outside of Nashville. There's probably some, I'm sure there's some, you know, like when it comes to like my live show, I feel like it has like a little bit influence of just, you know, the great musicality of all the live players here is a lot different than how track-based my music could be if I was in LA playing shows. And that could still be where my music ends up going with this new stuff. I'm not sure yet. But yeah, I mean, I think just being around people that are, like you said, all really passionate about what they're doing, it kind of takes you to that next level too. There's some, I mean, it's easy to compare yourself to other people and feel, you know, down about it too. Like it's, you know, you're seeing all your friends and like you see somebody else get a great opportunity and it's like, oh man, like I'm happy for them, but like, what am I doing wrong that I'm not getting that opportunity? You definitely have to be like, you know, really, I don't know if strong-willed is the right word, but just like, you know, you have to believe in yourself for sure. And you have to, you know, you really know that you're on the right path and trust yourself to be able to keep doing it.
Yeah. And that's, I guess that's another thing about like being in music or art in general. It's like everybody has their own sound. Yeah. You know, everybody has their own thing that they do. And whether that sticks out or not, you know, that's up to the people, but that's what keeps it. That's what makes it so cool. You know, that's what makes it so unique. And that's why I love it so much, is because not everybody, nobody's going to have the same sound. So you just got to you got to be off. And I think that goes to the next point, is like, you got to just be off, like who you are.
Exactly.
You got to be who you are, and people, you know, and obviously for you are who you are, and people really enjoy that.
I think if I was going up
3
there,
million people. So.
almost 2.98 right now.
2.9999.9er. But like authenticity is so important. You know, you see, I feel like, and again, I haven't lived in Nashville or anything, but I feel like there might be some people that fall into, well, that person's pretty good and they're doing the thing, so I'm going to kind of do what they're doing. It's like, but that's not who you are.
Literally say that happens all the time. Like one of my good friends who I work with a lot. He's a producer and works with a lot of country artists in town, and it's kind of a running joke with me and him that like a lot of his newer clients will come in and be like, because they've heard him work with this one specific client that he's kind of like helped, develop their sound in Nashville. And so a lot of them like, hey, I want to work with you because you can make me sound like them. Like do their sound. And it's like, yeah, like but you're not them though. Like you gotta
Yeah.
find your own thing. But
Yeah.
that's definitely a thing, in any town. It's not just Nashville. You could do that in Michigan and listening to anybody. Like I'm not, free of that. There's plenty of times where I've tried to copy, a sound that wasn't me necessarily. And I can go back to music that I've put out over the last 10 years and look at like a certain era and be like, I was trying to do this thing for a second because I thought I could be that. But like that wasn't me.
Right.
And so like, I still don't even know if like I've really found my sound. I think that what I'm doing right now is me, but in 5 years, will I look back and be like, no, man, now I really found what was me. Like, you're always evolving, I guess. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's super important, especially when you're learning music in a non-traditional sense. Like I mean, in a traditional sense, I feel like there's for sure a right and wrong way to do things in the the Western style of like learning and playing music. But in reality, like the way that we consume music and the way that that music societally is now is everyone sounds super different, and really what makes it good is you being you. But does that mean that these influences aren't prevalent and that you're just playing things that you didn't necessarily know of before? You know what I mean? It's like I think there's a fine line. I do think that comparing yourself to anyone else it's it's nothing else but damaging. That's in my opinion. I think that's something that has hurt me in my business, in my playing, and so many aspects of life. But that doesn't mean that I still don't take those influences from those places. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm sure.
and I feel like the influences are on so many different levels. Like one of my best friends in music, he's somebody who I've been influenced by him a lot as far as how I try and handle myself in situations, how I try and handle myself on stage, how I try and handle myself when I'm coming up to an improvised solo or something like that. But I'm not playing all of the same exact notes that he's playing. I'm
Right.
not saying all the same words that he's saying, you know what I mean? And one thing I feel like in the music industry is so many people like will come down on a high horse and say, oh dude, well, if you do this, this is how you're going to make it. Like somebody will say, well, dude, if you just put out this tune, then I swear you'll get big. And you're like, dude, hop off, bro. This is not your shit. this is my thing,
I hear that all the time.
Yeah,
man.
Yeah, I'm sure you do, And that's just so crazy because you have like a huge following and people are still trying to say, oh no, dude.
I mean, yeah, there's always, you can always compare to how somebody else made it. Like, oh, this was successful for them. Like if I just did that, or, you should just try this one thing because they did that. But you're not going to make it the way anybody else is. Like you are your own person. Like there's different reasons why other people became successful is because they did what worked for them. And so, well, like you're saying, it's good to be influenced by people, but yeah, if you try to copy them, it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that brings up a good point too. It's the difference between using your influences to shape your own sound as opposed to just straight up copying them. I guess like how would you define the difference?
I mean, there's a line. It's foggy sometimes, but yeah, I don't know, because there's plenty of times where it's like, oh yeah, I want them to try to make this sound like I want the drums to be similar to this song by The Weeknd or something. And yeah, I mean sometimes it's easy to just use the same type of sound that worked for them, but it's not, you're not them, you're not going to sound like them. So at the end of the day, if someone listens to that, it's just going to sound like a cheap version of the artist that you're imitating.
Right. And like you listen to, and that's the difference. It's like I feel like every one of us is a melting pot.
Mhm.
of influences, and that's what creates unique sounds, and you get like a group of musicians together, they're all melting pots and they create this like unique sound. And I think that's what pushes the art form forward, is like having that uniqueness and like having those different backgrounds and influences all coming together and creating this different unique sound. It's like having different kinds of things like influence. Oh, we could try that, to like, because I really enjoyed that album. I think that's cool as long as it speaks to your music that you're making, as long as it's like, this is the sound that I want to hear, because this is what I hear in my head, not necessarily because I want to sound like Stevie Wonder,
Right.
or I want to sound like the Backstreet Boys or whatever.
Shout
And
out.
I wouldn't mind sounding like either, but
No, I think that comes from, this is, in my opinion, probably the most important part of playing music is listening to music, right? And having that foundation inside your head. And I feel like where influences really come into play is when you're pulling from that bank of things that you've heard before, you know what I mean? Where you are listening to, I don't know, let's say you're listening to Billie Eilish, and you can take something from the beat that you really like and leave the other stuff behind. Like maybe it's this one little pattern in, beats 3 and 4 of measure 2, like it's that one little nugget that you're just like, ooh, that's something. And that's how I feel like it's the ability to take what you like and leave the other stuff behind. That really starts over a long time of doing that really starts to form your sound. And Ben, like you said, I feel like your sound is an ever evolving thing, and
Absolutely.
it'll never be exactly what you want it to be. And I think that's the beautiful thing.
I feel that, because I have like my own like practice facility and like studio, and so I spend quite a bit of time practicing every day, and it's such an internal struggle, it's like, why don't I sound like that guy? I need to sound like that guy.
Yeah.
And then the next day you're like listening to some other, oh man, I don't sound like him either. Like, it's like this, but like at the same time, I'll listen to myself play and I'll be like, okay, yeah, and I've had multiple people like, oh dude, yeah, that sounds like Andy, which that is like I feel like that's the greatest compliment.
Oh, for sure.
I don't think it's, oh yeah, Andy he sounds exactly like this person.
Right.
He's like,
people think that is a compliment. It's like, especially in this like American Idol age of everyone trying to like go out like, oh, this person's so great because they sound exactly like, so and so. But it's like, if they sound exactly like so and so, they're not going to go anywhere.
That's dude.
They sound like themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why you think of like the biggest names. You think of like Adele.
Mm.
You think of like Lady Gaga. You think of like, I don't know,
Alicia Keys.
It's like, man, no one sounds like them.
No, and if they did, they're not going to be as successful. They could, they can make a living doing like covers.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, there's plenty of money to be made in covers. But if that's not where you want to go, in the long run, you got to figure out your own sound at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that concludes part 1 of our interview with Ben Schuller. Stay tuned for part 2, which is coming out on Thursday, December 17th at 11 a.m. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you next time.